What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Phil Perry. Really fun episode for you today because let's talk about Mac Jones, shall we? It's been about 5 minutes since we last talked about Mac Jones, but we are constantly talking about get him a weapon, get him a weapon, get him a weapon, right? How about specifically get him a weapon that he's already familiar with? Because it's happening all over the league, slowly but surely right now. Whether you're down in Miami with Tua Tagovailoa, paired with Jalen Waddle, his college teammate, or in Philly, and it's Jalen Hurts with Devontae Smith, or the big example that we're all very well aware of, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. All of those receivers helping their college quarterbacks take their games to another level. Can that happen for Mac Jones? Well, in this draft class, there are a couple of Mac Jones' Alabama teammates that are available in the draft. One is Slade Bolden, slot receiver that we talked about on this podcast before with Mike Rodak down in Alabama. The other is John Metchie. Coming off an ACL, John Metchie, one of the most productive Alabama receivers the last few years. He has a huge supporter in his coach, Nick Saban. We know what that means to Bill Belichick and how much weight that kind of recommendation would carry. But John Metchie met with us here in Indianapolis at the Combine today. He was asked about his knee. He was also asked about his relationship with Mac Jones and what it would be like to pair with Mac Jones in the NFL. Here's his answer.
Oh, that would be cool. Me and Mac 10 got back together. It would be cool, yeah, for sure.
Have you thought about that at all, especially with Chase and Burrow kind of picking up where they left off from LSU in Cincinnati?
Yeah, it's definitely something. I've heard, and especially seeing the trend of teams liking to unite quarterbacks and receivers or just former teammates together. I think Mac 10 and that would be special for sure.
So there you have it. Big smile. Confident guy, smart guy, John Metchie is. Really interesting background. We'll learn more and more about Metchie as we get through this offseason, as we get closer and closer to the draft. But that, to me, would be a fascinating match. Now, here's the question. Number one, how is the knee? Can he really be ready for training camp as he told us today he was planning to be? Number two, if he is paired with Mac Jones, is he the kind of talent that would really take Jones's game to that next level? Is he that true X? Is he that boundary guy? Is he that threaten the defense, threaten every blade of grass type of receiver that the Patriots, I think a lot of NFL evaluators believe they need? Or is he more of a do-it-all, jack of all trades, master of none, use him inside, use him outside, fill in a pinch if there's an injury, kind of complementary piece? Because the Patriots are loaded with complementary pieces at the moment. So can Metchie be that guy? Let's ask somebody who knows better than me. Okay, let's bring in the Athletic's Dane Brugler, one of our favorite interviews every single year. Nice enough to sit down with us here at the Indiana Convention Center and talk to us all about this receiver draft class. Let's get to our conversation right now with Dane. All right, very excited now to have with us Dane Brugler, the Athletic, the best when it comes to knowing everything there is to know about really any given draft class. We could probably ask you about the, 2017 right now if we had to, and you could probably rattle off some information for us there. Thanks for being with us, man.
Oh, anytime. Always great to be with you, Phil.
I wanted to ask you first off, because you have been studying this draft and these prospects much longer than those of us that just swoop in after the Super Bowl and try to figure this whole thing out. Where is this draft deepest, in your opinion?
I think it starts with edge rusher. There's no position like edge rusher in this class where you could feel good at every point in the draft getting someone that's going to help your team. So first round, second round, pass rusher by far. After that, I think there's a handful of positions that you could really make a case for. Wide receiver is one of them. Offensive tackle is one. Linebacker. Those three positions really stand out as being very talent rich at the top. First 3 rounds, you feel like there's a multitude of future starters in that mix, and so I think that lines up pretty well with maybe some directions that the Patriots could go.
I think it does too.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when you talk about receiver and just talking to people around the league this week, when we talk about Mac Jones, it's always, the conversation always comes back to, well, can they get him a guy?
Yeah.
You know, if they could get him a guy, then we'll really know what he can be. And so it's almost like there's this TBD kind of hanging over Mac Jones's head, and it might not be answered unless they can give him that, might not be Jamar Chase, but that type of player that can help take his game to another level. So is there a couple of names at 21 overall or in that range, Dane, that you think would fit the Patriots and maybe be that guy that helps Mac Jones get to that level?
Yeah, and I think this wide receiver class, to me, there's 6 that belong in the top 25. I don't know if all 6 will go that high.
Yeah.
But they belong there. That's how good they
Wow.
are. And it'll be interesting to see who's left for them at 21. How many go in that first 20 picks? To me, Garrett Wilson's the top receiver this year. I think he'd be a great fit because he gets open and then he creates after the catch. When it boils down to, that's what you want your receivers to do. But his teammate at Ohio State, Chris Olave, probably the more realistic option if they wanted to go receiver. And that's maybe the difference between those two players is Olave, while he's got more polish, probably a little more dependable, really smooth, he's going to light it up here. He'll run the 4.3s. Doesn't give you as much after the catch. He's not a tackle breaker. That's just not his game. He's not overly elusive with the ball in his hands. But, there's something to be said about a guy that can get open and he's ready to contribute from day one because of his routes. It's just a very overall dependable player. Jahan Dotson, I think, is in that mix there in the late first. And if they want to wait until second, third round, I think they can. Like a David Bell from Purdue. John Metchie, why reunite him with Mac Jones?
Why not?
Metchie's got that discount sticker
Everybody's
on him.
doing it.
Yeah, right. And if it works, it works. And Metchie talked about that this morning, how he would love that, love to join back up with his quarterback. So coming back from that ACL, obviously the medicals play a part, but this is a player that you're going to get maybe 10, 15 picks later than you normally would because of that injury. So if he's on pace to play at some point in the first 2 months of the season and return from that injury, yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense.
And he did say he's planning on being ready to play by the time training camp rolls around, which is mind-blowing.
Great.
It would be great for him and great for any team that decides to make that investment. In Metchie, Dane, good time to ask you, is he an X? I think that's when we look at the Patriots and the way they're set up now, and I know they've liked to have guys that can play all 3 spots. Right. But the way it's kind of shaped up is Jacoby Myers looks like their slot. Mm-hmm. Kendrick Bourne has been kind of their Z, who's occasionally gets that handoff and he's off the line of scrimmage. And Nelson Aguilar has been the X, but that's really the spot that everybody I think is looking at and saying they could upgrade there. Could Metchie fill in there, or is he more of an interior kind of move him around type of piece at the next level?
I think that's part of the appeal with Metchie is he can play any of those positions. And you want to hear Nick Saban really gush about a receiver, just ask about John Metchie. I mean, he calls him the epitome of what a wide receiver is. That's a pretty high praise coming from him.
He's seen some good ones.
Yeah, he has, absolutely. They've turned out from Julio to Amari Cooper and on. Yeah, so for Metchie, he might not be that elite size speed guy, but he has body control. He understands how to manipulate coverages. And this is a guy that is outstanding toughness. Now, the injuries worry you a little bit, but last year, after his 2020 season, he had shin surgery, ankle surgery. This year, the ACL. So durability is a factor. But I think it also speaks to his toughness because he plays through a lot, and he's just a really dependable player who I think you feel comfortable XYZ playing all over the field, and a guy that's going to play relatively early in his career.
Is my guy Traylon Burks going to be gone by 21?
If he's not, then he must have broke a leg or something.
Oh, no.
Listen,
you're killing me.
Guys that are that size
I love that guy.
and run that fast, they just don't last very long. I mean, he's one of the best players in this draft. 6'3", 225. He's a linebacker-sized Deebo Samuel. That's what he is. And he mostly lined up inside at Arkansas, but he said he likes outside best. And so another guy gives you that versatility and not the most refined player. You bet on those traits every single day and what he's going to be, not only right away, but 3 years down the road.
That's disappointing because that to me is prototypical size to play on the outside,
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, basically N'Keal Harry size, but much faster, better athlete, has done it against better competition. Right. I mean, just watching him run away from the entire Alabama secondary, which is
nobody in the SEC
studs.
had more 20-plus yard plays this year. Nobody. And they play pretty good football down in the SEC.
They do.
It says something about his ability. And, again, another reason why if he's there at 21, something must be up.
Last thing I want to ask you about receivers. What's nice about covering the Patriots is that Bill Belichick obviously has been the guy, and he has certain things that he likes and that he wants in every position. And you can go all the way back to scouting reports from when he was with the Browns in the 90s, and it still looks like, at least to us on the outside, like he's going after the same stuff. It was true at the quarterback position, Mac Jones. You could go back to those Brown scouting notes. 1995. it describes Mac Jones to a T. Accuracy, anticipation, decision-making, doesn't have to be an athlete, doesn't need a big arm. It's like, okay. At receiver, the one thing that he has harped on in the past has been getting off the line of scrimmage.
Okay.
No matter how you do it. You can do it with strength, you can do it with quickness, you can do it with some combination of the two. Who to you, that would be a realistic option for the Patriots, is best at freeing himself at the line?
Well, I think that Olave is really quick with his release package, but you do worry a little bit about his size because he's not the most physical. He's not the most. The play strength's okay. It's not great. So you do worry about guys that'll get nose to nose with him and be physical if he's going to be able to shake that. I think Garrett Wilson, if he were to fall to that point, his release package is outstanding with jab steps and quickness, and he plays so much bigger than he looks. So I think both Ohio State receivers fit that. David Bell, if they wait to the second round out of Purdue,
okay.
I think that's a name that would fit as well. And then Metchie as well. I think Metchie, he checks a lot of boxes. He really does. If the medical staff feels good about the injuries, checks a lot of boxes.
He's an interesting guy because after getting a chance to talk to him today, and it's just one interaction with the media, but very comfortable, very confident, smart guy. I think he's the type of player, obviously with that Alabama background, that Bill Belichick would love. I do want to ask you about the linebackers because you mentioned it's a pretty deep linebacker class.
Right.
Patriots could be losing both Dante Hightower and Juwan Bentley. Again, they have a type there. Size, athleticism, power. The name that has come up has been Leo Chenal from Wisconsin.
If you were going to bring him up, I was. So yeah.
Is that the one that stands out to you first and foremost as the Patriots fit?
If they stay put with that, what they like, which good chance they do, he makes a lot of sense because of. I mean, he's in 1995, he'd be a top 15 pick. That's just. You do worry about third down. If he's playing in reverse, can he hold up in coverage, that type of thing. But his contact balance downhill is phenomenal. His ability to work off blocks, find the ball carrier, finish with a little bit of burst, it's really something impressive. So as a downhill player, he is one of the best linebackers in this draft. It's just you do worry about third downs and what does he give you in the passing game? Can he get better in coverage? I mean, he's not a slug in coverage, but can he get better in that area so you trust him on an island, trust him covering zones underneath? So I think it's an area that he has to address, and that's why we're talking about him as a second, third-round pick and not a first-round pick. But he fits a lot of what the Patriots might be looking at linebacker.
Should they be looking for that at linebacker? I mean, should they be adapting? Should they be evolving in terms of how they're thinking about that position, Dane?
Yeah, I think you could make a case either way. I think obviously Coach Belichick knows more about what he's doing than we do.
They won a Super Bowl not that long ago with Dante Hightower just destroying guards one-on-one for 60 minutes.
Exactly. So if there's a scheme that can get away with that, it's the Patriots and Belichick. So I think they know what works best for them and the type of linebacker they want. But I think there are some linebackers in this class that maybe give you a little bit of both, best of both worlds. Darian Beavers from Cincinnati, I think he fits that mold where. And you can wait until the third round, maybe even the fourth round to get him. He's a former defensive end, very few players that's a former defensive end, but also a former safety. But he played both, and he's somewhere in the middle at linebacker. He can get after the quarterback. He can, drop in space. He's a physical player. So Beavers would kind of fit that mold where he's versatile, can do a little bit of everything. The Georgia linebackers, Georgia defense in general is going to be a common theme in this draft with all the players they're going to have drafted. Quay Walker is near defensive end size, 6'3.5", 245, 250, and he's going to run in the low 4.5s here. So a player that I think fits a lot of maybe what they want at linebacker, but also has the speed, the juice to go play in space, go make plays in coverage.
Beavers is a really interesting name, and that background is, as you describe it, reminiscent of Jamie Collins, actually. Jamie Collins played some in the secondary and moved around at Southern Miss, and obviously and he was a bigger guy, 250-pound linebacker. Mm-hmm. He was a little bit different from somebody like Hightower in that he wasn't necessarily the type to take on blocks the way that somebody like Hightower or Juwan Bentley does now. So more of that will, I guess, versus maybe the Mike in terms of how they have those roles set up. The one linebacker name that we've seen connected to the Patriots, Dane, that I'm not sure he necessarily fits the physical profile, but I'm wondering if he might be able to in a couple of years, is Devin Lloyd. Mm-hmm. Could he get bigger? Because he just looking at him, watching him, and you've watched him much more than I have, kind of long and lean, and
Yeah.
I think he's 6'3". It just looks like he might have the potential to fill out, and he does bring all this athleticism to the table. Is that something you could see him growing into if he were to come to New England?
A little bit. I think because he's a former safety, so he started off really lean.
Okay.
He's still pretty slender. So yeah, I think you're right about that. But I think the key with him is he plays so explosive that he doesn't necessarily have to be perfect with his take on and working off blocks, because he's so explosive and plays ahead of blocks, which is why, in my opinion at least, he's a top linebacker in this draft. But being a former safety, he's comfortable in coverage. He can play all 4 downs where he's helping out on special teams, playing coverage. He had, I think, 22 tackles for loss this year, which second in the nation, and there's no shame in being second to Will Anderson from Alabama in anything. So he can beat you downhill. He can drop in space. To me, Devin Lloyd, with what we saw at Micah Parsons and what he did for Dallas, there's going to be a lot of teams, I want that. To me, I think that Devin Lloyd gives you the closest. He's not Micah Parsons, but he's the closest to that in terms of versatility and just the total package of what he gives you.
Last position I want to ask you about is corner, because it looks like J.C. Jackson might not be long for New England.
Sure.
If the Patriots want to continue to play this press man style that they have for years now, and they feel like they need somebody who might not necessarily be a Pro Bowler or an All-Pro, but could be a representative number 1 cornerback, is there somebody that stands out to you day 1 or day 2 that you like the best in that type of scheme that I guess would be realistic for the Patriots? We could say Sauce Gardner, but I don't know if he's going to get to 21.
Probably not. I'm interested to see where Trent McDuffie goes. Let's talk about both Washington corners.
Okay.
Kyler Gordon and Trent McDuffie both should do very well for themselves here. Both should test. I know I talked to Trent this week, and he told me they've got some friendly bets going about, because both should be over 41 inches in the vertical. Both should be low 4.4s, 4.3s even. They've got some friendly bets.
What have they got in the water over there in Washington?
Kidding. I think there's LSU, DBU, and all. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's what Washington with what they've turned out.
They've had some really good athletes there too.
No doubt. And Gordon's interesting because he kung fu growing up and dance competitions, and he did that before football or basketball or anything, and that's translated well for him in sports. But I think that with Gordon, he's not nearly as instinctive, or his cover awareness, the technique. Those aren't necessarily strengths to his game. Corner, though, it's a stopwatch position, and after Kyler Gordon works out here, probably not going to get out of the first round. So he's going to be in that late first round mix. Does Trent McDuffie make it to 21? Not the biggest guy, but decent, probably 5'10 and a half, just under 200 pounds. But he's one of the smartest DBs I've ever talked to coming in as a prospect. He's very well versed in different coverages, press, off. He understands, based on formation, if the offense is showing us this, this side's going to stay in quarters, well, I'm going to move to press bail. I mean, I'm kind of grilled him on all these different situations, and he was fine just rattling off, this is what I would do. And he's a very, very smart player. And so because of that, I don't think he's going to make it to 21. But if Trent McDuffie were to make it to 21, I would really love that fit.
And you think both those guys would work in that specific scheme? They're not pigeonholed into being zone guys. They could do what Bill likes to do.
Right. That Washington secondary with Jimmy Lake, they really asked him to do a lot. Both, they did a lot of press bail, but they run and cover 3, run and cover 6. They did do a lot, and a lot of it is on the fly based on your reads, based on double plays. So it's something that those Washington DBs, you have to be a smart player to play in that system. And I think that they're well versed in all these different coverages that will really help them as they go to the next level. We know you watch so much tape, you watch so many of these guys. Yeah.
There have to be guys that you fall in love with that are flying under the radar for most of the rest of us. Is there, just because the Patriots have had so much success, whether it's J.C. Jackson or Malcolm Butler or Jonathan Jones, all these guys are all undrafted. But is there a late round, maybe even an undrafted guy that you look at and like, man, if there's a team that lands that guy and he gets the right coaching and it's the right situation, he could be pretty fun. Is there somebody that stands out in your mind in that regard?
You always have your favorites. I'm Kalen Barnes from Baylor. This guy he might run the fastest 40 here. So he's going to be more well known after he runs his 40 here at the Combine. But when you have that type of speed, it makes up for all your sins. It really does. I mean, you give up a step, he makes it up like nothing. So Kalen Barnes, I think, in the right situation could really stick because of what he gives you with that pure speed. It really, like I said, a stopwatch position. So after he's done here in Indianapolis, I'm not sure he's going to be much of a secret anymore, but Kalen Barnes would fit that bill as a late-round guy that you bet on a guy like that.
We bet on a guy like you coming here and teaching us every single year at the Combine. Dane Brugler, the best in the business, my friend. All right, excellent stuff there from Dane Brugler of The Athletic. As always, phenomenal. And you got your receivers in there. You got some corners. You got some linebackers. We're talking big bodies at the second level. We're talking press man. We're talking releases at the line of scrimmage. Love getting into the nitty-gritty details with Dane. Just tremendous, tremendous stuff, as always, from him. We appreciate him sitting down with us here at the Indiana Convention Center. We have plenty more content coming to you from this Indiana Convention Center, from this NFL Scouting Combine. You're going to need to keep your eyes out for our next Pats episode. We've got the NFL Network's Judy Batista with us. She's telling us all about what's happening behind the scenes with the NFL Competition Committee, what rules might be changing, what's happening with the taunting rule. Can we get rid of that thing, please? What's going on with overtime? And how about the punt in general? Is the league trying to get the punt out of the game? Is that possible? How would they even do that? We're talking about all of that with Judy Batista, and we're also getting a chance to catch up with Pro Football Focus lead draft analyst Mike Renner. Tremendous insight from him, as always, when it comes to what the Patriots might be looking at, some of his favorite prospects in this year's draft class. You are going to love these conversations. Make sure you're keeping an eye out for that one. Thanks for listening to this one, and we'll talk to you very soon.